Hello and welcome to this London Embroidery School Stitch Along. I'm your host for today, Natasha, and hopefully you will have seen our story that we were coming on live today to do some couching with you. We did do a reel the other day that went really well about couching and about how it can be quite a fast way to fill an area. That was accompanied with a video about filling an area as, like an enclosed shape. But today we're going to be using it as a line technique, which it can also work really well for. So I have my item. I'm working on a t-shirt today. I'm going to go into more detail about what I did with that and why we chose that a bit later on. But we're working on a white t-shirt today. I've got it mounted up into place, which is what you can see here with the stitches around the edge. And that's just going to allow us to stitch directly into the item. I'm also working on a table clamp frame so that I can work with both hands, which is really convenient and a lot more comfortable once you get into stitching on, a really regular basis. So I'm just going to start by doing some stab stitches. I've got a single thread threaded up into my size 10 embroidery needle. And we're just simply going to begin couching. So after those stab stitches, we now just come along and create a series of very small holding stitches that just go up and over the rest of the threads. So you can do this with the whole skein of threads. I've used 5 here because the 6th one is the one that I'm actually sewing with, because then that means you've got no waste, which I think is quite a nice little bonus to add to that. Now, we've got that couch down. You can see just 4 little stitches and we've already got 1 line in. With these ends, you can come in with a bigger needle. This is a chenille needle, and using the lasso technique, which is basically where you have a folded piece of thread, usually buttonhole thread so it's nice and thick, and you make a loop in one side with both of the folded ends on the other side. And then that means that you can plunge your needle in, take hold of the thread that needs to be tidied through the loop, just ease it through and pop it through to the back. You can then tidy that up later, or you can cut yourself a longer length of thread here and later on thread that up into a big needle like a chenille needle and simply drop it through to the back. Either way, super easy to tidy up. For each stroke, we're going to need a new piece of embroidery thread. So I'm just going to come up here to start the next bit. The lasso method that I just demonstrated is a really useful little technique to have in your arsenal. I really like it for all sorts. It's got me out of all sorts of jams. For example, I was at a friend's wedding and she happened to cross her legs whilst signing the register, and in doing so, kind of scraped her leg and the dress against a table leg that then pulled a thread in the silk of her gown. I know, disaster, right? But because of the lasso technique, we could pull the pull through to the back of her dress, and so it didn't show anymore, and everything was fine. It was just a bit of a shame. It caused her a little bit of stress on the day, understandably. But the lasso technique got me out of it. And yes, I am one of those people that if I attend a wedding, I have a sewing kit with me, because somebody always needs sewing into or out of something at a wedding. There's always a use for it, whether it's fixing something that's happened, or I went to another wedding where I had to sew my cousin into her jumpsuit because she split it at the crotch. So, the moral of this story is always take a sewing kit to a wedding if you're going. But that is very much an aside note, and I appear to have gone off on a tangent. I'm just tidying up these ends because they're upsetting me a little bit on the top here. So I'm just pulling them through to the back. And then hopefully you guys should be able to see the design appear much more quickly. As I mentioned, embroidery generally is one of those crafts that you can't rush it. It takes as long as it takes. And that's kind of, it is what it is on that front. However, with couching, because you are just using the surface stitches to hold everything into place, it does mean that overall, it's a much faster way of filling a line, an area, whatever you're doing. And so if speed is your need on this occasion, then it's a great way of doing that. There's loads of different combinations that you could make as well, which also I find very exciting. So in the reel, which if you haven't seen, suggest you go and have a little look, because I think it's got some useful information to it. But you use, in that reel, I show it with a different holding stitch colour than the thread that we are applying. However, for this one, I'm obviously using the same as the thread colour which we are stitching with, so that it's really super subtle and it just, reads as fast embroidery. If you want it to look smoother, you can always increase the frequency of the holding stitches along the couching. They are called the couched stitches. Or you can space them out more and give it a bit more texture. Equally, this does not just have to be done with embroidery threads. And as I'm going to move on to in a few minutes when we finish the itza, we can work in whatever thread you like. So I've also got some tapestry wool here that we're going to do the spring bit in, which I think should look really fun. And, just give it that little bit more variety. But, you could use all sorts, string, ribbon, whatever you like, cord, fab with this technique. So let your imagination run wild. I can see we've had quite a few people join us. I'm just going to flick through in case there's any comments that I've missed, because I am terrible for just sort of stitching away and then not looking, and I miss your lovely comments. So I'm sure it's all on somewhere. I have Len Art Design. OMG, I love this technique, learning something new every day. Thank you very much. I appreciate the comment. It's much easier for me when people chat to me too. So if you've got anything that you'd like me to answer for you, anything you want to tell me, anything you want to request, then, pop it in the comments. I will try and check it periodically, and I do like to read them out as well, because those of you who have seen a stitch along before with us, we pop them all onto our Reels catalogue, as well as our YouTube channel. So all the information from today's stitch along, even if you can't stay for the whole thing, will be kept over there for posterity. And you can watch at your leisure. But obviously the rolling comments don't get held on YouTube, or, after the reel has ended. After the live has ended even. So, yeah, I just like to read them out to make sure that everybody knows what I'm answering to, whether you're watching live or not. Now, just going back to the lasso technique for a second, I would usually leave all the loose bits on the top here until the end. And this is so they don't get in your way on the back, which they are doing a little bit for me right now, but for interest and for you guys to be able to see it happening today, I am going to pull them through, which will make it a little bit more messy on the back, but we can try and tidy that up as much as possible later. Len Art Design, hi, you're still watching. Do you secure the couch down thread at the back in any way, or are the couching stitches enough? Yes, I do. You just want to sort of like weave it into the back of your stitching. I will go through that a little bit later on once we've actually, you know, got a decent amount of stitching in so that you can see that in action too. But yes, you should secure them, but you know, it's being held quite firmly here, to be honest. None of this will be going anywhere anytime soon, which is always good, and good for knowing that it should wash well, because after all, we have chosen to work on a t-shirt. Now, I said I would loop back to that, didn't I? And here we go. So we get a lot of questions about, you know, what to do with your embroidery afterwards, how you can use it, where you can put it, how you can apply it, how you should approach once you've learned a technique, like how you could apply it to a real life item, whether that is an item of clothing, or it might be, you know, like an interiors item, like a cushion or a coaster, all sorts. But the point is that we don't just want our embroidery to be, you know, this aesthetic thing that's always confined just to a hoop. It's, you know, it should be part of your life. It should be enjoyed. And if you can take like a little bit of art with you where you go, isn't that a lovely thing to enjoy? So yeah, we're trying to do a little bit of a deep dive at the moment on how you can really, you know, work it into your life. And so, yeah, I'm working on this garment today on a t-shirt, because everybody's got a little white t-shirt, to show you how we can do that. The last stitch along that we did, I worked onto a cocktail napkin, and that was just like window mounted into place so that we could work on it, which is another really useful technique that I won't go into today. But if you are interested in that, do have a look over there. I think it's another fabulous technique. In order to work on this t-shirt today, I have mounted it onto my hoop. So underneath, I've got a regular piece of woven white fabric that I'm going to cut away the majority of at the end. So we'll just be left with a little patch, if you like, on the back that's supporting the t-shirt, because the t-shirt is obviously a stretch item. It's got that lovely stretchy quality, which is why it's comfortable to wear. But it does make it very difficult to embroider, because you don't want it pushing when you're trying to like pull the fabric through. You know, if we were constantly fighting the stretch, this would be a horrible experience. So we've popped a piece of fabric underneath that is woven to make it much easier, and so that we can embroider in the usual way. There is still a little bit of bounce in the t-shirt itself, in its jersey, just because of the nature of it, because they're not actually like sealed together. We haven't interfaced them or anything. There's no glues involved here. It's literally just the t-shirt lying on top of the woven fabric underneath. But it is enough to make it possible to embroider the t-shirt nicely, and then yeah, we just cut away the excess later. Oh, I missed that one. Just pulling that through. Sorry, a little bit of concentration face going on here. Not that you can see my face, obviously, but yeah, just falling into that. It seems like yellow is a bit of having a moment with us. I don't know whether you guys have seen, but we have a new class, a new kit coming out this week now. Yay! Which I'm very excited to share. And it's also, you know, very prominently yellow. Some beautiful Achillea flowers. So, yeah, I'm really feeling the yellow right now. I can see I've had a question that I just need to roll back through to about, I think it was about the lasso. I will show you how to make one in just a sec. Okay, where was that? KarinaJassy.design. Love this new insight. How do you create the lasso thread? Yeah, so basically I've just got a piece of buttonhole thread that's about I don't know, 12 centimeters long, maybe. You can see I've used it a fair bit. It's frayed towards the bottom. You fold it in half. You get a nice big needle, like a chenille needle. You thread up the folded bit into the eye of the chenille needle, like so. You only pull it through halfway and you've got the lasso in which to thread your other threads. Okay, let's head up here. We need a little apostrophe. I've got a little bit left here for this. This bit's got quite springy, but that's okay. I'm sure we can make it work. This is clearly the bit of thread that's been wound round the rest of the thread to hold this whole scheme together, and it's very springy, but that's quite fun actually. Right, let's head over here, and we need a fresh piece of thread because I've used all of that one up. Probably don't need very long, do we, to do just the A? Maybe like that. Again, trying not to be wasteful with our materials. This is a really good one if you want to like use up threads that you've already got, because you can just like mix and match. You don't need to like buy anything new to get involved with pieces like this. And as with our last stitch along last month, we will be putting this one up as a free design for you to download if you want to just grab it and have a go at it yourself. I think it's a really nice, fun piece to just have a go at and enjoy. So a list of materials that I'm using today, because I've bounced around a little bit talking about what I've got and why you need it. So, got your t-shirt, we've got our base fabric, we've got our sewing thread for mounting the embroidery or the t-shirt onto the base fabric. We've got 3 lots of embroidery threads to use in different colours. Obviously, we've only used one so far, but we will go through the others in a sec. We've also got 1 skein of wool for a little bit of variety of texture today. You'll need some pins to do your mounting. You'll need, well, I'm using an embroidery needle size 10, which is my personal preference. I really like a size 10. I think it's a really useful size, but most importantly, stitch with what you're comfortable with. That's like the most important bit. Some snips. I also have a stiletto to hand for any bits that might need like pushing into place, but not so much so far. And you might like a thimble. I usually stitch with one, although I haven't got one on today. Don't currently feel like I need it. But you might like one. And a table clamp frame, which is obviously the hoop in which I am currently sewing. But again, you use your preference of hoop, whether that's, you know, a loose hoop or a slate frame or a seat frame or a table clamp frame. Those are your main options. Again, just dropping these ones through to the back. Right, there we go. Oh, 2 more. Unless we want to leave these little curly bits on the top, but I think we can do better. We can be tidier. I was sort of in 2 minds about whether to do another sort of lettering looking design, because we did a monogramming based one last month. And we're going to be trying to do one of these each month, you know, with a little free design that you can just like have a go at if you fancy it. Try something out from us, see if you like it. But yeah, it's more the couching technique that I really wanted to show you. So yeah, if you think this is a sort of good approach, let me know, because it's the sort of thing that I could probably work into a class and make it, you know, very exciting on that front. If that's something that you think you would be interested in, I'd be interested to hear from you. Okay, so I'm just going to flick over to the back and just make sure it's not too much of a mess, basically. Okie dokes. Where's my... Let's pull that out the way. So all of these, basically, what we need to do to secure them is, I like to grab a few at a time and kind of like pull them against one another. Once I've cleared a few, this should actually be easier to see. And then you just want to like loop them together. Can you see how they start to gather? Just so that they lie flat on the back of your piece and don't irritate you. Particularly because this is a garment, we want to make sure that we are adding to the life of the garment. We're not, you know, making it less wearable or less enjoyable to wear, at least. Any loose ends then left around those pieces can be tidied. You might have a few that have caught underneath your other bits of stitching that you might just need to like release. Some of which might be like caught sufficiently that you don't need to worry too much about them. But you want to have a few that are like going different ways so that they hold against one another. And these stitches that I'm doing now are just sitting very shallow against the back of the t-shirt and the woven fabric. They're not actually going through the fabric at all. They just sit against the back. So let's trim up what's already been tidied. Gathering together, looping around, loop. There we go. The design itself, as you can probably see just in the background there, that will be made available on our website, will be in the kits section if you want to look for it. Once this stitch along is finished, I will get over there and get it up. So if you can give me like half an hour or something, then I'll make sure that that's there for you guys should you want to download it. It is created so that you don't just have to use it for a couching outcome. You could use it for any embroidered approach you want to do. So it does have some extra details. It's up to you how many of those details you actually like transfer onto your particular item with whichever way you want to go. Okay, so that should be fine now. And we can finish off our yellow thread, just some stab stitches, hiding them in amongst the stitching to hold that thread into place, and we're done with that one. Now let's move on to the wool, and I haven't got a thread for holding this one, so give me 1 second. Okay, this one should be interesting. Let's get that threaded up into the embroidery needle. So we're going to see some of the holding stitches of this one because some of it is quite a good match to the thread, and other bits of it are going to be a little bit of a stronger blue. End. Yes. Okay. A little quick knot into the end of this. I am leaving the knots on the back of my embroidery for this one because it's on jersey. It sort of needs whatever help it can get to hold things into place. Other times I would say you could just do your stab stitches and then cut away the knot. But with this one, I feel like it's beneficial to leave the knot on the back. There we go, a little bit of a tail. And around the lettering we go. If you are wondering about how I transferred the design onto the t-shirt, you will see on our stories that I actually just popped a little light in underneath the jersey fabric with the design underneath and then traced it just with the pen on top so that it acted like a light box, which again is a super simple way just to get your design transferred over. A lot of people do that if you have an iPad. They just like pop their iPad directly in and underneath the item. And obviously the light from the iPad itself acts as the light box. And then you can draw in over the top. I've been using a heat dissolvable pen, one of the friction ones. I think they're excellent for embroidery because, yeah, if you make any mistakes or once you're done, you just give it a quick iron and any remnants of your design, any marks that you've got, just disappear. It's really nice. You can see I've done like dabbed my stitches rather than doing solid lines, which I would definitely recommend so that you don't like pull your fabric out of shape, which is particularly important when you're working on something like stretch because it wants to move. It really wants to go with you when you try and like drag across the surface. But yeah, if you just do a series of little dots, then that negates all of those problems really. And you can just easily transfer the design that you're working on. You can see just how quickly that sort of thing builds. I mean, I don't think I even maybe spent a whole minute on the main stitching of that S. You do need to think about your stops and starts with this technique. Like, where do you want to drop a stitch down through to the back, and how many stops and starts are you going to have. So for this one, we're going to need 2 rounds of stops and starts for the P, 1 for this downward stroke or upward stroke as I'm going to do it, and then 1 for the body of the P. As with obviously the S, we just had it started at one end and it finished at the other. When you pull the threads through to the back, that is going to be a moment of quite high pressure and tension on your fabric. So, go carefully. Don't go too violently with pulling it through. You might just need to ease it. You might like to wiggle the needle a little bit to make kind of a bigger hole around it through which the couched thread can then fall through with the lasso. But do bear in mind that the lasso, is buttonhole thread, ideally, because otherwise it's not going to very long withstand the pulling through to the back. But it's a thicker thread, so you need more space for it to get through. Plus it's doubled over, plus it's pulling through your couched thread. So you're asking quite a lot of it, and a lot of that hole that you're creating. So yeah, just go a bit gently. And that's partly why it's also important when you're taking this sort of approach, if you're working on something like jersey, to stabilize it with something underneath, because that woven fabric underneath that I've mounted this t-shirt onto is going to be really supporting the jersey as we pull through, to make sure that it's not going to like rip or collapse or buckle under the pressure and tension of the lassos. What we can do with these 2 ends of the P is that when we do them, we can tuck them in and underneath the downward stroke of the P to make it really nice and subtle. But just to sort of show you how quickly this can build, I am just going to carry on with the rest of the letters of spring. Do you think you'll be giving this a try? Have you got a project in mind that you think that this would be appropriate for? Let me know. I think this could be really good for like cushions, because cushions are fairly large. So if you drew out your design and, wanted to work in something like a tapestry thread or, wool, yarns, then you could really build something quite quickly, quite satisfyingly. I think this makes it a really good beginner's technique because it's quite satisfying. You can see it happen quite quickly. And, a lot of the time we are quite quick fire creatures now. We're used to having things at our fingertips. And embroidery doesn't really work like that, which sometimes can be a little bit jarring for people. They, love the aesthetic, but they just don't have the patience. But patience can be built, Patience can be worked on as a skill, which is becoming rarer and rarer. So, get yourself some rare skills and you might surprise yourself about where that takes you and what it leads to. Because a lot of the time, people just expect things to be like done really fast and just complete. And that can be hard when you're first learning, forgetting that dopamine hit and trying something and being like, this is for me because I've done this amount. It can be hard when you're first learning if you're just like, oh, I've been working at this thing for an hour and I have 5 stitches in. I mean, hands up if you've been there. It's just one of those things that you're sort of like, oh, and it can really put people off. So we think it's important to find new ways to sort of like energize people to embroidery and to see how cool it is and how it can be used, how versatile it can be. Sometimes that just means you need to think a little bit more creatively. It is a fab one for getting you away from screens as well, which I know, ironically enough, I'm, streaming this for you guys to watch on a screen. But hopefully it's inspiring you to give something a little go yourself. And then you can have a little break from screen time and just do something where, like me, you're just watching your hands and doing something with your hands, which is really good for your brain, I think if you do a little bit of embroidery and you take a walk each day, like, your brain is going to be so grateful and so happy. Now, I need a fresh thread, so I'm just going to do some stab stitches just on the line that I'm yet to cover over. And then cut it nice and close. Let's get a fresh thread. Just check the comments. I don't think I've missed anything. If I do miss one of your comments and I don't answer a question that you have, then please do pop it into our direct messages afterwards if I truly entirely miss it. It's not that I'm trying to avoid anyone or anything. It's just that I'm, looking at the work rather than looking at the phone. So yes, any questions that go unanswered, please do pop them over to us by another means, and I will get back to you. After the stitch alongs, it is me that goes through and has a look at the direct messages. So it will also be me answering. Just going to come back here and just pull that together a little bit more. Make it look a bit more like an N. Yeah, that's better. Okay. If you're going around a bend, you might want to bring your stitches a little bit more closely together to make sure that you are properly exploiting the curve of that bend and that the stitches stay where you intend them to be, because they do have a bit of a tendency to kind of roll around a little bit if you're not firm with them. So those are the places to increase the frequency. Equally, if it's looking a little bit baggy and you're not sure about it, then increase the frequency of your stitches. Each of these little holding stitches really should just come up from underneath, go around the thread on the top, the thread being couched, and then go back down almost into the same spot. To really make it tidy. If you were working with a wider thread, something like, let's say a ribbon, then you might want to make the holding stitches wider in order to hold the ribbon flat, because you don't want the ribbon to curl in on itself, because it is wide and it's wider than it is deep. I hope that makes sense. Unlike, yarns and threads, which are cylindrical if you were to cut them. We were looking at the cross section of the thread being couched. Okay, so we're going to have to finish that bit in and underneath the other part of the G. Start again up here. down this side to make that little swirl. As I mentioned earlier, we do have a new kit coming out later this week. There will be VIP access for that, so that's to those on our mailing list. So you've got some time if you want to be one of those VIPs to join it. You will find it in the pop-up on our website and at the bottom of our website homepage, should you wish to join us. The class that we are going to be releasing this week is the Achillea class. The kit that we're going to be releasing this week is the Achillea kit, which looks a little bit like this, which is very pretty. I've just applied it here to a tote bag, and it's going to be the first of actually 3 kits that all come out together of a similar style. So we've also got the tansy one, which will be coming in due course, and there's a fern design, which I'm obviously still working on, but the 3 of them will make up the meadow flowers kits. So we're really looking forward to getting those out, and that's a really nice one for beginners. Again, just really easy to kind of get into, to enjoy, and, you know, just focus on the stitching. It's only made of 2 colours and 3 stitches. And yeah, it's a really pretty little piece. It doesn't take too long to do. So you can get that satisfaction going. So this is what it sort of ends up looking like at the end. And this is the point at which I would usually suggest to do all your dropping through. Actually, we might, no, keep going. So you can give it a little wiggle to try and make the hole a little bit bigger, because as I say, we're pulling quite a lot through at a time here. And this G, as I mentioned, we're just gonna like angle it in and under the stitching that's on the surface. This is gonna make it look real tidy. You can see it's quite a pop as it goes through, but you can see how tidy that just automatically made that G look. I think I'm going to tuck that in and under the P actually to make them look a bit more joined. As you can probably hear from my thought processes, there's no hard and fast rules really about doing these things. I think it's important that you know that there is creative license with all these things. And of course there is like a right way to embroider it in a very traditional manner. But if you're enjoying the process, I think it's worth, you know, allowing yourself that bit of creative freedom just to kind of see what happens whilst you're stitching it, and give yourself the space and permission to make changes as you go along. Try something a little bit different. See an opportunity when it arrives and, you know, go for it. And sometimes it will improve the overall piece and sometimes it won't, and you'll just learn from it. And both options are great. Fortunately, because we are working with jersey, it is quite forgiving for the wiggles, for making the hole for dropping through. You know, they just close back up again quite naturally. This lasso method is very often used in goldwork techniques. So if you've tried any goldwork, then you will likely have come across it before. Because it is absolutely ideal for the goldwork threads that you can't thread up. See, we could, if we wanted to, thread up these wool ends in a nice big needle that made it nice and easy and drop them through to the back. But if you were working with goldwork threads, they are not going to go through the eye of many needles. And if you did manage to get them through the eye of the needle, honestly, they would just like start to break apart. They're not made to be used like that. They are more delicate than that. So, yeah, the lasso method of just stressing that one little point makes it so much easier. And means that you can just finish it all at once. Now, we go for the strong blue or the embroidery green. I'm thinking the embroidery green. Now, where is the end? Because this, I did not put this thread away very nicely. I have to have a word with my past self. Or maybe this is a note to future self to do better. So again, I've just cut a fingertip to elbow length piece of thread. I'm going to work with one strand on the top and the other 5 strands to make up the couched thread. We do still have this working thread from the spring that needs to finish off the back of all the wool. So I'm just going to stick that up here and take off the needle. And that's not going anywhere now. And I can rethread that later, pull it through to the back, rethread it, and then work with it to tidy up the back of spring. Again, quick knot into the end. We have some pro tips on our YouTube channel, which include things like the quick knots that you will have seen me do throughout this video. Again, super useful embroidery skill, something that I use every day that I'm stitching. And is one of those little like, I don't know, just like little pressure points that, again, beginners sort of say, you know, most people can make a knot of some kind, but if you can do it super fast, when you're working on bigger and bigger embroidery projects, as you get more and more excited about your hobby, then it just makes it that little bit easier, eases a small pain point you might have, and gets you to the bit of the embroidery that you really want to do. Now I'm on a little bit of a timer now because I think I've only got about 10 more minutes, and then Instagram will kick me off, as I will have been live for a whole hour. So I'm going to try and get this done for you guys, all in the one recording, but you know, we're slightly against the timer now. We will soon see. So is there anything that anyone wants to ask me whilst you have me live? Please do feel free to pop it into the comments. I can see people popping in and out as they're watching, and I'm sure doing other things. So yeah, if you've got anything that you want to ask me, please feel free. I love to hear from you guys. It's always nice to know that there's somebody out there, you know? If this is putting you in the mood for spring, see, we've got Easter coming up very shortly, and we have technically obviously become, oh, no, have we started Lent? No, we haven't started Lent yet. I don't think so. No. So we have Lent coming up, and whether you are religious or not, we have a lovely little Easter countdown PDF design, which makes a actual 3D egg-shaped bauble. So yeah, you do one design per day, and yeah, you can make the bauble at the end, and it's just a really nice springy feeling design. We really enjoy doing it each year. You know, there's little rabbits on it, and chicks, and all sorts of flowers, hand with tulips, just all like spring related motifs. One to do a day, as a little way again to just try and carve out a little bit of time for you each day to do something that you really want to do. Doesn't now have to take very long. It's completely up to you how you interpret each one of the designs. There's no hard and fast rules. You pick your own colour palette, but we show you how to transfer the design. We show you how to do the stitches in the PDF itself, and then you choose where you use each of them for a truly one-off, unique item. Because who says like baubles should just be restricted to Christmas? They are so lovely. So hence why we have a little egg-shaped one. I can see there was a comment there. Where did that one go? I've got Treeby69 says, what happens when you wash your t-shirt with the wool thread on it? Nothing really. The tapestry wool is pretty stable. And the embroidery is going to hold it all in place. The fabric underneath, the woven fabric, is going to be stabilizing everything quite a lot. So I'm not really concerned about that. It should all be fine. If you use a lot of, more delicate fabrics, if you use a lot of more delicate items to be couched onto it, and you were regularly washing it, then, maybe think about washing it inside out, perhaps in, like one of those underwear bags, just so that it's not getting caught on anything else in the drum with it, but the actual washing itself shouldn't cause any problems. For that reason, I would say whatever threads or items you choose to use and couch with, if you are popping them onto garments like this, make sure they're dye fast. That is a problem you may come up against if you are exploring these sort of options. And, if you've got a thread or a ribbon or something that's not completely dye fast, then it will leak out during the washing process, and you'll probably end up with some weird staining on the garment itself, which probably isn't what you're going for. Maybe it is. It might turn into something really beautiful. You never actually know with these things. It might be a little bit, punk rock. Depends what you're after. But just have a think about it, I think, is the important thing. If you've given it a bit of consideration and you're willing to kind of like take the risk, then great. Give it a go and see how it comes out. These little details like this are obviously a fab way to revitalize your wardrobe. Items that you either find boring or just don't gravitate towards anymore, can be really revitalized with a little bit of a creative touch like this. Right, I think we're going to do it. Got a couple more minutes, and I'm just coming towards the end of this G. And then we will be all good. I probably won't have dropped everything through to the back and finished off all the ends by the end of the live, but I will get that finished off and tidied up. And as I said earlier, it will all go onto our YouTube channel if you want to watch it from the beginning, if you've joined us a little bit later on, then you can do so. Okay. Let's just... So let's drop some of these through. Don't pull it out of the lasso. That's literally the point. Okay. It is so satisfying when they just pop away and disappear through the surface. I love it. It is amazing how many ends you end up creating. I always find myself baffled by just how many finishes you end up with, even when you think you've created something quite simple or straightforward. Embroidery has a way of somehow still making it complicated. Right, I'm going to finish these ones off and leave you for today. Thank you for joining me for this stitch along. Oh, I've still got the dot of the eye to do. Get back to that shortly. Yeah, thank you so much for those of you that have joined me today. It's been really nice chatting to you. I hope you've found something interesting to take from this stitch along. And we will be trying to do another one next month. So do look out for that in the stories when we announce when we will be doing it live, if you fancy joining me and having a little chat at the same time. That's all for me from today. So bye for now.
Feeling so strong, the way you look tonight, I can't keep this feeling inside. The way you look tonight, can't let time pass away. Dreams of the city lights and ocean views, the spring ahead, a house for two. You pass by, one look, I can't stop that smile from my face, yeah. Dreams of the city lights and ocean views, the spring ahead, a house for two. You pass by, one look, I can't stop that smile from my face. All the calls and night times, flights to your hometimes, ways we try to talk. Get help with the way we don't see the same, if only it was true. And you got me thinking I should go, and you got me thinking I know. The way you look tonight, I can't keep this feeling inside. The way you look tonight, can't let time pass away.